Good morning, everyone. It's great to see, to be part of a GCC summit. Obviously, because GCCs are the next big thing in India. And this is, of course, a phase of growth. Many states in India have started on this journey. Many states in India are making policies. Many states are attracting investors. And almost every week we hear about a new GCC being opened or announced. But any phase of growth also comes with its share of risk. Any kind of growth also should take into account that risks that are there currently and that may arise in future, and plan ahead. The important thing, while yes, I would still say it is important on how you mitigate risk, how you react to risk when they happen, but prevention is better than cure, as they say. So we have an eminent panel group here, and who come from various sectors. We have equipment leasing, real estate, we have technology, and we have legal, and compliance. And each one of them would bring in unique perspectives on the kind of risks that you'll see, and what each one of you here, while managing your GCCs, should take into account. So we will start with this track on. First, we'll try to understand the risk landscape in India. The first thing that's important. And if you may start with you, Simi, on while GCCs have evolved from being back office functions to more driving strategic innovation, CSI itself has a very unique history on how the GCC was opened, how you came into India, and how do you see the risk landscape from your perspective?
Sure. Thanks, Vipul. The way we would look at it, not specific to my business particularly, but in general, being a GCC ourselves, it's interesting that it took us 48 years to enter India. CSI Leasing has been in the business, since 1972, but it's only until 2020 that we entered India. One of the reasons being that, when we often talk about the complexity of doing business in India. So a great work has been done, a lot of work has been done in this space, but I think one of the challenges continues to remain is on the cross-border transactions. That of course is a big risk, and there is a lot of work needs to be done on ease of doing business in terms of how you easily flow the transactions of revenue receipts between your customers out there and in India, and with your headquarters and with the subsidiary out here. The second risk that we see based on our discussions with several GCCs, we are a GCC ourselves in some way, but we also support GCCs. I think talent sustainability. That's across probably, my panelists will also echo that. One is in terms of having the leadership skills, the niche skills, leadership in the niche skills, or having that, the skill shortage is how to combat that. Second is also how to develop the mid-management to create future leaders. That is one. And thirdly, of course, aligning with your global headquarters while maintaining your local aspirations. How to align that strategy, because you understand the local culture, there are cultural differences, there are different market dynamics, there is global strategy, and there is local challenges. So aligning that, I think, is one of the major challenges. These are the three risks if I have to sum it up.
That's quite well said, actually. And Anthil, from your side, what are the kind of risks do you see currently?
Yeah, so we are from the ITES sector, right? So the problems are same, but the flavor is slightly different. For me, Entain India is the GCC for Entain, which means our core purpose is to support the global product and technologies that we offer them. Now, while doing so, how do you differentiate yourself? Because in the GCC story, we are clearly moving away from this cost arbitrage narrative to the value creation narrative. So what does it actually mean on the ground, right? So we essentially have to be very close to what Entain does globally in terms of its products, technology, and so on. And to do that, you also have to be very close to the business. So we essentially are looking at embedding our teams within the global business units, which are also otherwise known as your pillars, right? We have product pillars. Why is that important? Because the risk is you become extinct otherwise. I think in the current age of AI, status quo is just not a possibility. I mean, you either move forward or you stagnate, and that is the reality that you'll have to really face. Given that, we need our teams to be very close to the business and be evolving with the needs of what the market is asking from us, right? So that is the strategic alignment piece. The second piece is also about the perspective. As a parent company, what are we offering that is clearly differentiated from what they would otherwise get, right? If we have to answer that question, it's all about what is the value that you're creating. And that is why we are very strategically pivoting towards from basically build to spec, we want to do build to solve, right? The teams have to be able to solve problems, and those problems which are very, very relevant to business. So if you're not doing it, you are again at the risk of being redundant, right? So that's the important aspect. Besides that, I think talent is another key aspect. I mean, all of us are fighting for the same talent, right? We have lots of them in India, but again, with niche fields like AI, data, machine learning related stuff coming around, I think we're all fighting for the same kind of talent. Now the question is not just about hiring, because that is old school. Today, you need to really create an ecosystem where people feel aspirational to grow their careers, right? So which means you not only decide on how do you recruit them, but also create an ecosystem for them to kind of thrive in. So it's just beyond hiring and onboarding people, you'll have to see how do you retain them, right? Attrition is a real risk which you'll have to deal with, and that is where you need to be very, very conscious about creating that ecosystem which helps people really thrive. People really want to grow in this environment, and it is up to you to kind of make that available to them. So I guess these are pretty much the two risks I feel like are very critical and to be dealt with.
So, surely, so you mentioned about aligning with the global strategy. You mentioned about GCCs themselves need to differentiate from what the parent company does, and talent acquisition and management is equally important. And Swathy, when Simi mentioned about her company taking some bit of time to come to India, and that the perception was also of how easy it would be to do the business, if I've got that correctly. And you being from the legal side, regulatory side, you also understand the kind of challenges the India ecosystem really poses for companies. Would you like to throw light on that?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for that, the lead in. I think, look, while India has progressively been making efforts to sort of move up the ease of doing business, rankings, I think the practical reality is still, there is still some distance to go. I think there is so much complexity in terms of the point at which you decide to explore having a GCC in India to the point that it actually goes live. And a large part of that has to do with, a lot of burdensome administrative processes. So one is, of course, you have to understand, what are the various models that you can possibly enter India to serve your strategic objectives, whether to go via the bot route, whether to set up your own subsidiary. There are so many strategic considerations. But even after you've arrived at a decision, there's a fair amount of complexity in terms of, actually setting it up. So if tomorrow you decide to set up a company in India and you're entirely non-resident, we're talking about, 3 to 4 months to really go live, and that in this day and age, and given the kind of dynamic environment that GCCs are operating in, that's simply too long, so that's an inefficiency that sort of still remains. And even in terms of, there's a lot of apprehension that I've seen in several of my clients, just in terms of, there's the feeling of being overwhelmed when they think about Indian regulations and Indian regulatory landscape. So I think there needs to be some degree of correcting of that to help India really, achieve its potential on the GCC front.
So is there complexity which is a deterrent, or is it usually the time taken?
I think it's both. One is, because there are so many layers of regulation, it takes a lot of time to understand and process. For example, the tax complexities that influences what structure you ultimately choose for your GCC. Then understanding the various registrations and licenses that you need to get to actually get operational. and then understanding the basics of the paperwork and administrative process involved in setting up a company. So all of these, I'd say they're linked, you know, the regulatory complexity is linked to the time topic as well.
Yeah, and every state has its own framework.
Yes, yes, that's another issue.
Mr. Unnikrishnan, from your side, anything?
Yeah, well, I would take it from where Swathy and I said that, you know, from our industry, I'm from Aparna Constructions. Primarily, we are into the residential sales, but we have started taking our baby steps into the commercial space as well. From a GCC perspective, I see the biggest challenge what we see from a developer, and if a GCC has to be established, is the availability of grade A spaces. Like the availability of talent determines where they establish their offices. So it is all concentrated on the core city area. So building grade A spaces will lead to higher cost in those markets. The established GCCs are expanding. The new GCCs also want to be in the similar surroundings. So the cost goes up, and then the advantage of having a cost benefit is no more there. So that becomes a primary challenge. The second I look at is the regulatory. Whether we want to take an existing leasing space, what should be the terms of leasing in terms of, or if we are building a new space, right from municipal licenses to the state level licenses approvals will take time, and we are always constrained on time to deliver. So that becomes our biggest challenge, that bottleneck there.
A lot of overlapping processes. It's not only the layers as she spoke, but there are a lot of overlapping processes in getting your registrations and everything in place.
But overlapping in what sense? Can you expand on that?
Multiple processes from one department of government to another. You have a lot of approvals.
There's still no single window clearance for GCC. And I think the GCC policies also surely should take that into account, both in terms of course, talent becomes a much larger and a long-term program on how to build that talent, because one aspect of the talent is not enough. You need to have that whole, become a hub, educational hub to become a GCC hub. But at the same time, for a policy framework like Swathy mentioned about the legal framework taking a lot of time, and you are also talking about from the bureaucratic hassles as well as the real estate, the time to go live obviously is something which goes for a toss. And but once a GCC is open, perhaps, and we have thankfully been able to tide over all those hassles, but running a GCC is also about, like Anthil was mentioning, a lot about the talent as well as managing the talent, but also the processes. There is why they open GCCs is obviously there is a cost arbitrage to it. There is a talent to be available, and one needs to keep differentiating through various operations processes as well. And AI, artificial intelligence and data analytics helps us in achieving those kind of efficiencies. So Anthil, because we were talking about, you brought up the topic of talent management and retention. At the same time, there is a lot of risk assessment to be done. There is, you need to have fraud detection, the processes should be optimized. How do you use data and analytics to achieve these efficiencies?
Okay, that's a good question. I mean, for us, data is the lifeline. Usually, I joke around, you know, our leaders, the first thing they do in the morning before having coffee is look at our BI report, right? So, because ultimately our business, every day before we start, we look into the data. Because we have a lot of spend, CRM spends, we have big campaigns. I mean, sometimes we could be running a small campaign for, let's say, $2 million over a span of 1 or 2 days. And there could be a TV ad campaign which goes for a week, which will almost cost us 20 million and so on. So, and how that money is spent, where it is spent, is kind of decided based on data. So every day, our leaders, including myself, look into the data in terms of how our different regions have performed and how have our players reacted to our propositions and what should be our strategy for today, right? So it's not a 6-month strategy or a 2-month strategy, but a daily strategy. Pretty much every day we go in, look at our data, look at the recommendations that are coming in to figure out what are we going to be doing today, right? So essentially the market intelligence or our business forecasting is completely dependent on data, right? So we are looking at data all the time to ensure we are clear in terms of how we operate. That is one. The second is, again, very specific to our business. Security and privacy are like very key considerations, right? We are into the sports betting and gaming world, and there collusion, fraud detection, these are all very realistic topics, right? On a daily basis, we have to work with that. We have huge compliance and regulatory overhead which we have to manage as part of this. So that is where data helps. I mean, there are so many people betting with us, playing our games. I mean, we almost do 200 million game rounds in a day worldwide. Now, you can imagine there could be so many different patterns in terms of fraud, how collusion could be happening, how we could actually detect fraud. It is not possible for humans to do this accurately. You definitely need something like a machine learning algorithm running to actually unearth those patterns and tell us what is going wrong. So again, data is the king. We need to crunch this data in real time, help us tell how we keep our players safe. So that's again a very important aspect. And last but not the least, we also use it to figure out how well we are doing, right? I mean, like I said, retaining talent is a key aspect. So we are in the process of getting in a mechanism where we just don't do survey or feedback collection from our employees. Rather, we collect data in a way where there's also sentiment analysis done on it, so that we understand if a person has joined us and has completed 1 month, what are they feeling at this point? Are they happy? Did they make the right decision, or are they not happy about it? Let's say there's an employee who spent 2 years, right? Something like a midlife crisis comes in, right? Is he okay continuing with us, or is he already starting to look out? Or a long-term employee who's been so invaluable to us, are we retaining that person? Are we keeping them happy, which we obviously should, and so on. So now it is not just about collecting data, but also about doing sentiment analysis on that data and figuring out those very key insights to actually make sense out of it. So like I said, data being used in very different ways, but be it business or be it taking care of our employees, it plays a very, very crucial role.
Sure, thanks. So data in terms of course, preempting the kind of risks that are coming. And Swathy, does it happen for, in your field also using AI to, because it's also about multiple jurisdictions, it's also about, there's a big financial impact also. In fact, GCCs can prevent up to reduce the financial risk by about 15% by use of AI and data analytics. So what's your take on this?
I think, look, AI, I don't think there's a single industry that's really immune from AI at this point. In fact, there used to be a way in that we used to say that AI is the future. But I think it's fair to say that AI is also the present and it is the future. And what we see, and I think, what was explained very well is how central AI is becoming to process efficiencies across the board. So it's not only about GCCs, it's about any sort of organization you look at. You see AI being used to boost employee retention, get that sentiment check, to get market intelligence. You're just using AI in so many functions that it's really important to firstly to use it in the right way is to also build a framework around it. AI sounds very promising and it's full of potential, but it's only as good as the humans that sort of build it and train it. So the most efficient way to inculcate AI as a core of each function in any organization is to really build a framework as to how it is to be used, to also involve your compliance and legal functions in terms of understanding the regulatory boundaries for AI, so that it is not while it's trying to improve efficiencies for an organization, it should not unnecessarily open up organizations to risk on its own. We are all aware that AI has certain shortcomings. There are hallucinations that can happen, false positives that can be triggered. So in those kind of situations, there should still be human leadership to have that oversight over AI processes.
And AI data analytics people still keep reading about it. But Simi, in your experience, are organizations mature, or should we say the knowledge quotient is high enough as far as understanding the risk in terms of equipment leasing?
Globally, yes. India yet to reach there. If you look at the global equation, I think almost more than 50% of the equipment are done through the leasing route. In India, the penetration rate is less than 2%.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
That's-
So there
that's
is
true.
a lot of room over there. I think the capability that organizations, global organizations have is more on understanding the asset, which is very less invested in India. We don't even have a separate asset financing industry. But there it's a separate vertical by itself. For example, in CSI's case, right from a small laptop if a company has to take, understanding that equipment, when it will mature in its life cycle, when it will come to end of term in next 18 months, 24 months, 36 months, that kind of global asset management capabilities, data analytics or wherever, I don't know, I'm not from the technical background, but however they use to manage that whole asset life cycle is something that India is not yet reached there. And that's why we help GCCs to bring that up over here.
can you expand
Yeah.
more? When you say
So,
understanding the asset, that seems interesting.
Yeah, understanding we have a global asset management team who will evaluate not only in India, we are present in 50 countries. So how an equipment could behave, like in India, you would probably be using your laptop for 3 years. Internationally, maybe 2 years is its end of life. In Malaysia, it could be a different market. In Europe, they would be using. Same thing goes for your storage servers, your office furniture, how you use it. So that capabilities, when it's developed and you have a global data bank of that, that brings a lot of value to the market when we come in over here. And it helps GCCs how to mitigate their risk. In our business, as we say that, buy what appreciate and lease what depreciates.
Okay. And is that because leasing has not really taken off yet?
It's not yet taken
Yeah.
off yet.
So when they
Yes,
have ownership, they have they
Yeah.
actually sweat
Right,
the resource
right,
more.
right.
Okay.
So I think where we come in the picture over here is helping companies, convert their capex to opex, use the global capabilities, CSI's capabilities in terms of the asset management skills that we have, automated tools that we provide, and that's where we use a bit of AI and data analytics and bring that capabilities, advising them the right opex solution for the right asset. It's not a general one size fits all.
Okay.
It's having a deeper understanding of the equipment.
True. You want to add?
Vipul, the real estate industry also has been adopting technology quickly. Not just the analytics part, but I think the IoT devices play a major role. While, the data is certainly used in the development phase or the building phase, we use a lot of data in terms of making up plans and, how the constructions have to be planned. But from a GCC perspective, energy efficiency becomes very important. So a lot of IoT devices are being used to track not just the safety of the building, but also the energy efficiency of the building. So that data, when it comes in, that is constantly reviewed, and then accordingly changes are being made. So that becomes an imperative there.
So what we are seeing this is, of course, in every aspect. There's a lot of use of data, which all of you have stressed. And that data gives you a better picture of the current situation, as well as what would be there in the future landscape. And if GCCs have to build a roadmap, and in fact, just imagine that we are opening a GCC, all of us together. I'm the one in the project group who does nothing, but the experts here are here, and you feel that a GCC has to be opened. So what would be your recommendation in this case, that how should a GCC go about it? Probably the first thing, what should be the first thing in fact? Should it be real estate? Should it be equipment? Should it be the technology, or should it be the legal aspects?
If I can take a crack at that, I think there has to be strategic sense as to why you're setting up a GCC. What are the type of functions that you plan to run out of your GCC? And having that strategic clarity is what informs all your other choices. Different parts of India have different talent pools. You'll see certain areas with like a lot of talent in, like, let's say automotive, or there is some other sectors like banking and finance who, the talent base for that is in a certain other direction. So I think every organization, before they get into the decision of the nitty-gritties of real estate and other things, I think that they have to have strategic clarity, and a lot of GCCs who've sort of short-circuited that have not done so well, and they've had a lot of challenges in terms of attrition, or meeting the expectations of what they were supposed to do.
I mean, if you can just add to it, I also think stakeholder buy-in is super important, right? I mean, a lot of times you need to first get that out of the way, because once you get into this act of creating a GCC, like Swathy said, there's legal challenges, there's infrastructure, hardware stuff, your processes that you need to create, costing and things like that. But there is going to be a journey that you have to go through, right? And it is not going to be super smooth. No matter how, like Swathy said, that's, even though we say that the ease of doing business is reduced, I mean, it's improved considerably, the ground realities are often different. So upfront, if you have that stakeholder buy-in, it helps you go through the process. Otherwise, you're kind of second guessing yourself all the time, and then the sponsor usually do not commit on to these challenges, right? So this is like a long haul. It's not a short journey. So which means you'll have to get the right buy-in, the commitment in place before you get in and start driving things forward. So I believe that's tactically a very important thing to have in place before you kind of embark on something like this.
Simi, anything you wanted?
Yeah, I think what is most important is over here that GCC should not be mere just, cost efficiency centers. There has to be value creation, and you have to really look at that. If you're coming in for a long-term perspective, that's where you're actually creating some wealth or for yourself and for the country that where you are in. For us, the way we look at it, we started our business in 2020 in India. As I said, it took us 48 years to enter India. But in the very first year, about 85 to 90% of our business was global accounts. In 5 years, it's reversed. Today, 55% of our business is local and 45%.
Okay.
So it's also a reverse flow of revenue generation or value creation that we are bringing for the parent company out there. That's extremely important. If I were just to service the global customers or the headquarters, you don't see too much, kind of value in it. You want to do much more than that. I think that's very important, and it's a great market, big market. We all know that. As I always say, whether you like us or you don't like us, you can't ignore us. So India is all about that. It cannot be ignored. So there's a lot more strategic depth to it to be attached to any investment that you make over here.
And equipment leasing typically forms how much percentage of a OPEX or a CAPEX for a GCC?
If it's a service center, your investment is more in people, and the only thing that you're investing is the real estate and the equipment side. But if you're a manufacturing center, of course, there's core plant and machinery. But internationally, right from your wagons to your manufacturing plants to your aircrafts, everything is leased. In India, even the basic equipment leasing is yet to pick up, because we have traditionally been having the mindset of ownership. Now it's shifting. Now it's more about right to use, valuable use, spreading the cost over the life of the equipment. And that shift is happening, and we could foresee that. That's what brought us over here. And we are seeing that big change happening. As I said, 55% of my customers are now local. So we see that when we bring those global practices, global knowledge, how to look at the transaction, it's not just mere financing. It's what a structured solution related to the equipment that you're actually investing, and how to create a right structured financial solution for that. People are looking at it, and it's opening.
And Unnikrishnan, for you also, opening a GCC, what real estate strategy should one adopt?
While there are many things you need to look at, I think one core philosophy or factor you will need to look into is diversification of the locations. So now most of the GCs are coming up in tier 1 locations, but as the infrastructure grows, I understand the challenge in tier 2 is the infrastructure, but for GCCs, I think it makes a lot of sense to have a core plus one strategy. The core can be in Bangalore and Hyderabad, but the tier 2s can also add a lot of value there. That is not just part from a cost benefit analysis, but also from a BCP point of view, right? The business continuity plan will fall in place there.
So, and the hybrid working model or a
co-working model,
how has that impacted?
So that, I think, in terms of the leasing models, so you have multiple options in terms of co-working or hybrid. Now it is back to office. So that is, most of the GCCs had to readjust their work requirements, workspace requirements. So being flexible there, selecting locations and making your leasing arrangements such that there is flexibility going forward will help.
I think you both resonate on the same point. Yes, leasing is the way to go. Yes, definitely. And Anthil, on the technology side, if one has to build that kind of stack, what are the considerations that you would have for a GCC?
I mean, especially from a technology standpoint, I think it again comes back to your data. How well are you mushrooming your data and harnessing it, right? Why? Because let's look at the AI landscape. I mean, you have finite amount of AI algorithms that are already coming. I mean, most of what had to be discovered is already discovered. They're efficient. They're just getting better and better. You have GPT-5 release now, and then it's all about throwing more data to it. So it's like this hungry monster that wants to consume more data, right? It's not going to fundamentally do something very differently, or it could do different things only if you fed it different data, right? So the data becomes the primary aspect of how this whole thing works. Now, when it comes to that, it is about data governance and data structure. We have tons of data, but how much of it is actually useful is a questionable aspect, right? It can be any industry, not just IT. It can be construction, leasing. It can be any industry, including banking. We have data, but is the data structured? How much of this data is usable, right? And so cleaning up data by itself is going to be a huge chore going forward. So I think companies should also focus on creating data governance as a very primary aspect of how they function, right? So bottom up, you create data in a very structured format, ensure it is clean, ensure it is usable, so that you can kind of leverage it to do what you're doing in the future. And that becomes a very important aspect of how we do business, and for almost all industries to kind of survive and grow in the future. So data is the king, and we need to focus on ensuring that structurally it is in the right shape. And that is where you also need to kind of make it a basic part of how you're doing business, right? So when you're doing business, you also should figure out what is the data elements that are being used in it. What are those attributes? How do they link to each other, right? And what is the kind of data I'm generating, and how am I going to leverage it in the future? So all of these are aspects that have to be thought upfront, not as an afterthought. Instead, design it to be very data ready, and then kind of move forward with it.
That's great. Interesting points here. And before I move to the last section, does anyone in the audience have a question for our panelists here? Feel free to. So we have a question. Can we pass on the mic? If you can start by introducing yourself.
Yeah, my name is. I am Kalyan. I am from ABN Bev.
Hi, Kalyan.
One of the question to Entain particularly. So, as we talked about the risk management, the government support is also important. And when it is an informed decision, it will be well and good. But right now the situations are demanding like things need to be move fast. Now, last month we saw an announcement about the too much of taxation into the gaming industry, which might have impacted you as well. So it is not is it an informed decision or it's a sudden attack?
Good question. Let me see how I can answer this by also being politically correct. See, I guess this was due to happen at some point of time, right? We had gaming industries, and just to be clear, we don't operate in India. None of our products are used in India. We are purely GCC that is helping Entain provide these products and technologies for global market where it is regulated.
Can you just expand a bit like you?
Yeah, so see, regulated markets are where there's a clear gaming commission that tells you how sports betting has to be done, how casino games have to be played, and so on. So our markets are basically things like US, we have UK, we have Latin America, we have Central and Eastern Europe, we have Australia, and so on. So those are the kind of completely mature regulated markets where we operate, right? Now in India, of course, in the recent past, a lot of companies had mushroomed, including Dream11, fantasy sports and things like that. They all were operating in a kind of gray zone because the regulation and the legal aspect was not black and white. It was kind of in the gray zone. and that is where they were operating in. But a year ago, government first moved in and said we're going to put in 28% GST. So that was again sent mixed messages. So it was not, we were not sure whether they were trying to regulate it and this was a first step in doing it, or they were trying to ensure that, I mean, they were passing a message saying this is not fitting into our culture and this is not something that we want to encourage, right? So the messaging was not clear. But again, 3 weeks ago, it was crystal clear, very black and white. They said that it is completely banned. Of course, we personally had zero impact because of it, because we don't operate here, but it kind of was a big blow to a lot of big companies, especially some of these companies are sponsoring and supporting the biggest sporting events in our country, right? So there's a lot of money at stake, a lot of people involved, but I believe sooner or later it was the right thing to do, because having clarity in terms of what is to be done and what can't be done is any day better than just working in a gray zone. So in my perspective, probably it was a bit later than when they should have spoken out, but better late than never. So I would say that it's better that we have that clarity and we can at least move forward in a unambiguous way. You know?
Yeah, definitely. I think there is another question.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah, you're able to hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Fantastic, I think, an overview for sharing the insight. No, my question is very simple. My name is...
Sorry, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah. You're able to hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Ruby Mantha, I work as Chief Operating Officer, and I'm on the board for 3 companies on data, AI and cyber security. The question is, see, we are talking about data governance, we are talking about AI strategy and agentic AI, all done and said. My point is, I also feel, and I wanted to ask the panel, how important is predictive analytics? Because we do predictive analytics for everything to understand and gather and gain some, understanding about before you do actually the risk. We do the risk assessment and risk mitigation. So how important is, do you think is the predictive analytics part in doing this? If you can throw some light, it will be great.
Can I just start?
Yes, please.
Good question, and I think, from a predictive analytics point of view, it is very critical in the real estate industry also. GCCs are, they say, are immortal. They can go on forever, right? So the manpower planning becomes very critical. The office use or the manufacturing hub use, space usage, all becomes very critical, and if you are able to use the data to predict it for the next 5-10 years, then the space requirement becomes crystal clear.
Sure.
So that is how that becomes a core area for a real estate company to work with the GCC.
Do we have any further questions? I have my eye on the clock as well. So of course, we can continue the discussions later on as well. But let me, for the interest of the audience, summarize what was said, and I'm going in reverse chronological order, because the first thing when you are doing is, of course, deciding how to start a GCC, and like Swathy mentioned, first decide why do you want to really open a GCC. There has to be a strong strategic reason for it. And like Simi said, there has to be a value creation to it. And what Anthil also mentioned was, how are you differentiating yourself from the parent company? What are you really trying to achieve through this beyond just cost? So it has to be value as well. And what Anthil also mentioned was, it is very important to align the internal stakeholders. You need to also, it could be a thought in your mind, but it has to be aligned, because you need a lot of sponsorship, both in monetary terms as well as spirit. And what Simi and Mr. Unnikrishnan both were mentioning is about come out of that mindset of owning everything. You own the product, you own the customer, surely, but what they are talking about is think about more on a long-term strategy of how you are utilizing the assets. Correct me if I go wrong. How you are utilizing the asset, how you can make best use of various financial models to achieve the best capex and opex. And Unnikrishnan also mentioned that from a real estate perspective, have a core plus one strategy. Perhaps think of the metros, but go beyond metros as well. And Anthil stressed on data governance, data being extremely important. We just had the last question was on predictive analytics. All our panelists here are of the opinion that data is something which really drives their business, it drives their strategy. And data governance as well as a proper structure a proper master data management is extremely important if you want to make your GCC successful. So I think it's that part taken care of. There are certain risks which everyone should take care of. Cross-border risks, talent acquisition and management, local challenges along with global strategies, differentiating yourselves, the legal challenges, and the availability of grade A real estate, because everyone wants the best talent, everyone wants the best technology and the best locations. But look at data, make use of AI, but have a human in the loop, and look at the proper operating model so that you can manage your costs well. So quite an enriching discussion. I think I'm probably kicked about opening a GCC myself, but nevertheless, the discussions can flow on. The panelists are here, and thank you so much for sharing your views. Sorry,
I'd
Simi.
just like to add, we spoke so much about risk and everything. I think all the risks and challenges can also be turned into opportunities.
Oh yes, yes.
So
definitely.
it's a great opportunity here.
Yeah.
In our case, a small example, we chased our customers to be in India. Today we see that vendors are chasing us to service them. So it's only bringing more GCCs in India, creating a knowledge bank. And with this dissemination of knowledge, the country only gets richer, I think. So bringing the best global practices.
Definitely.
So it's also an opportunity.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, audience, for giving a hearing. Over to you.